Today we're going to be talking about virtual switches and how to use them in your virtual machines. And the first thing you need to do is open your Hyper-V Manager. If you look over to the right, there is a virtual switch manager right here. If you click on that. Now, there are three types of virtual switches. There is an external type, and if you look right here, if you ever get confused, this is right where you'll go to remind yourself. An external virtual switch, it creates a virtual switch that binds to the physical network adapter so that virtual machines can access the physical network. So here's a diagram I drew up of an external virtual switch, just so you can kind of get an idea of how it would look. And so you've got your host machine here, represented by the square, and then your Hyper-V with your virtual machine, and then you create your external switch, and so your virtual machine would connect to the external switch, and then your external switch then in turn connects to your physical network card on the host machine, and then that in turn would take you out to the internet. An internal virtual switch. An internal virtual switch creates a virtual switch that can be used only by the virtual machines that run on this physical computer and between the virtual machines and the physical computer. An internal virtual switch does not provide connectivity to a physical network connection. This is a diagram now of the internal virtual switch, and as you can see, it's a little bit different from the external. I've put two virtual machines in this one just to kind of show you how it's going to work. Again, you've got your host machine and your Hyper-V with a couple of virtual machines in it, and then you create your internal switch, and so you'll connect your virtual machines to your internal switch, which then allows your virtual machines to communicate with each other, and then they can also communicate with the host machine itself, but they cannot, the one thing they cannot do is communicate out here to the internet. So they can communicate in here only within the host machine and themselves, but not outside of that. And then private, the last one, creates a virtual switch that can be used only by the virtual machines that run on the physical computer. Here's a diagram of what a private switch would look like, and again, this looks almost exactly like the internal, except I wrote private right there instead of internal, but it is going to be slightly different. Again, same setup, host machine, Hyper-V with your virtual machines, and they are going to connect to your virtual switch in the same way, and your virtual machines are going to communicate. But that's all that's going to happen. Your virtual machines will not be able to communicate here to your host machine, and they will not be able to communicate out here to the internet. So it's only communication between the virtual machines with a private switch. So those are the three. And now we are going to actually create them. If you want to create one, it's pretty simple. You just click create on whichever one you want to create. You name it, whatever you want to name it. I usually stick to what I'm doing. So when you click apply, then it'll say it may disrupt the network. It does that because if you do already have something connected then to one of your virtual machines, it could disrupt that. Click yes, then you've created, after it applies, you've created an external. Click OK. Then you have to go back in. If you want to create an internal one, you click create virtual switch. If you name it internal, so I'm going to name, except I forgot my internal. And then it'll tell you here, internal only. And if you named it anything else, it'll tell you down here too, internal network. apply. Click OK. Go back in. If you want to create private, create virtual switch. If you go back into your virtual manager, over here on the left, you can see you've got an external virtual switch, an internal, and a private. So you have all three switches created. So click OK, and you go over here to any of your virtual machines, and you right click, you go to settings, and you've got so far just one network adapter on them. So you would click on that network adapter, and then up here where it says virtual switch, you click the drop down menu, and all three of those now show up on there. So if you want to get out to the internet, then you would click external. So now, and once you click apply, you can now get out to the internet on that machine. Now, say you need to be able to access the internet, plus you also need an intranet with that machine. So you can't have that one network adapter connected to two switches. So what you do is you go up here and you click add hardware. You can add a second network adapter. So you've got two network adapters here. You can take that one and you put it on an internal network adapter and click apply. So now you've got an external and an internal. If you go down here and click on networking, then it shows, like if this is your server 2012 machine, if you click the networking tab, it says network adapter, external, internal. Now we've got our virtual switches set up.